ready to unlock that next level athletic potential. I mean, who hasn't watched like a pro athlete and thought, how do they do that?
It's almost like a superpower, right?
Totally. And you provided us with an amazing resource to kind of dive into that today. This presentation from Athletics Australia's Pathway Transitions program.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It really is. It's packed with biomechanics insights, especially for those of you focused on sprints, jumps, and throws.
Exactly. It's not magic, though it can feel like it. What we're really talking about is the science of what it takes to win.
And you're right, this presentation dives deep into the mechanics behind those seemingly superhuman feats, showing how even tiny tweaks can make a huge difference. Okay, so let's talk speed specifically. Those fractions of a second that separate a podium finish from, well, a participation ribbon. This presentation threw out some stats on winning 100-meter dash times. Mind-blowing stuff.
It is. We're talking like a median gold medal time of 9.8 seconds for men.
Wow.
10.72 for women. But here's where it gets really cool. Those elite athletes aren't just fast, they're incredibly efficient. Think about it, less time on the ground means less energy wasted.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is where those crazy low ground contact times come in. We're talking under 0.09 seconds for men.
It's unbelievable.
I know. Can you even picture that?
Barely.
And just a hair over that for women. And just those tiny details that make all the difference at that level.
Exactly. And to really grasp it, let's visualize Usain Bolt's legendary 2009 world record. Every step, every fiber of his being was optimized to minimize that ground contact time. Of course, we're talking about peak human performance, but the principles at play apply to every athlete, from beginner to elite.
So we're talking about squeezing every ounce of power out of each stride.
Every single one.
And it all starts with a strong foundation. Literally the block start.
Oh, absolutely.
The presentation really emphasized how important it is to nail this, to unlock your full sprinting potential.
It's true. Mess up the block start and you're playing catch up the entire race. It sets the stage for your entire acceleration phase. The presentation actually highlighted common mistakes, especially in younger athletes.
Right.
Where those bad habits start early.
And they give some great visuals of how even slight misalignments can throw everything off. Like, I never really thought about how important shoulder alignment was, but they made it clear that's where your line of force starts.
Exactly. Think of your body as this finely tuned machine.
Okay.
Shoulder alignment, hip height, foot pressure in the blocks. Those details might seem small, but they're crucial for generating force and using that ground reaction to your advantage. We're talking physics here.
So let's break down those hip mechanics a bit more, because I know for me that's always been a point of confusion.
Yeah.
The presentation mentioned that if your hips are too high, you risk throwing your weight forward. Too low, and you're basically losing all that explosive potential right from the start.
Precisely. It's all about finding that sweet spot to maximize power and efficiency. You want that solid loaded pressure against the back of the blocks, harnessing every bit of energy for that explosive start.
They even talked about how important it is to play around with different foot plate settings to find what works best for your body. It's not one size fits all.
Absolutely. It's about customizing your approach. But once you launch yourself from those blocks, the challenge shifts from explosive power to maintaining that hard-earned velocity.
Right, and this is where they made a distinction between stride length and frequency. It's easy to think longer stride equals faster.
Right.
But they emphasize that's not always the case, especially early in the race.
It's a common misconception. Many athletes instinctively overstride, sacrificing frequency for what they perceive as power. In reality, it's about finding the optimal balance for your body type and stride style to achieve true efficiency.
Which brings us to the nitty-gritty of the running gait cycle, the stance and swing phases. The presentation broke those down even further, giving us a masterclass in efficient movement.
It's that burst of energy that propels you forward.
Okay.
It actually makes up about 60%, 60% of the entire cycle.
Wow.
And then there's your swing phase, which is all about quickly repositioning your leg for that next crucial ground contact.
But it gets even more nuanced than that, right? They didn't just stop at stance and swing.
Right.
They dove into initial contact, mid-stance, toe-off.
They did.
It's like they were giving us an X-ray vision into each stride.
And that detailed understanding is what separates good technique from great technique.
Makes sense.
For example, they highlighted how crucial it is to minimize pelvic tilt and knee flexion during mid-stance.
Right.
You might be surprised how many runners, even experienced ones, lose efficiency and risk injury by not maintaining that upright posture.
It's all about that straight line of force,
Yeah.
head to toe, which makes sense when you see those elite runners just like gliding across the track.
Exactly. It ensures your muscles are working optimally and your joints aren't under unnecessary stress.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about toe off. They emphasize the importance of maintaining a tight shin angle, almost like you're springing off the ground.
You know, I've been working on that in my own training lately, and I can feel the difference it makes.
Right.
It's like all that power from your calves gets like directly channeled into forward momentum.
It's those seemingly small tweaks, those micro adjustments that add up to huge gains over time.
For sure.
And speaking of gains, let's shift gears to the long jump.
Okay.
The presentation showcased those like jaw-dropping, medal-winning distances.
Yeah, they're incredible.
But then they hit us with a key metric, runway velocity.
Right. 10 to 11 meters per second for men, 9 to 10 for women.
Fast.
Those are some seriously elite speeds.
Yeah.
But they made it clear that it's not just about raw speed on the runway, it's about consistency and control.
Precisely. They talked about how discrepancies between your flat speed, your run-up speed, and your approach speed can reveal a lot about your technique and potential areas for improvement.
Okay.
For example, if your approach speed is consistently lower, you might be unconsciously hitting the brakes before takeoff, robbing yourself of valuable distance.
And that's where the importance of a consistent run-up length really clicked for me. It's not just about hitting a target.
Right.
It's about giving yourself the time and space to make those gradual steering adjustments so you hit that takeoff point with maximum velocity and control.
Exactly. Those last few strides are critical.
Yeah.
They also went into detail about body position during takeoff, highlighting the need for an aggressive forward-leaning torso.
Okay.
Almost like you're attacking the air.
I like that.
It's about maximizing that upward momentum.
And minimizing velocity loss at takeoff, which makes sense.
Exactly.
Every little bit you lose there translates to less distance overall.
They even suggested using visual cues during training.
Okay.
A simple cone placed a specific distance from the takeoff board can help you gauge your stride length
Oh, interesting.
and ensure you're hitting that sweet spot with optimal speed and power.
Oh, I like that.
It's about training your body to execute those crucial movements instinctively.
So we've tackled sprinting, we've tackled jumping. Now let's throw literally the javelin into the mix.
Let's do it.
The presentation used this event as like a prime example of how small tweaks can translate to huge differences in distance.
And what's so fascinating about the javelin and throwing events in general is that it's this beautiful interplay of force and timing. You need
Yes.
both to excel.
And they broke it down into those key elements: release velocity, angle of release, and angle of attack.
They did.
It's like they were saying, you could have the strongest arm in the world, but if those angles are off, you're leaving serious distance on the table.
And they backed it up with hard data. They found that even a 10-degree difference in the angle of attack, just 10 degrees, can cost you 7 meters of distance.
Wow.
That's huge.
It's mind-blowing how much those seemingly insignificant details matter at that level.
It is.
It really highlights how crucial it is to get those biomechanics dialed in.
It is. It really makes you realize that we often focus on the big picture,
Right.
the medals, the records, but it's those tiny details, the ones we can barely even see, that often make all the difference.
Absolutely. And what's so inspiring about this presentation is that it doesn't just analyze elite athletes. It gives us the tools to apply those same principles to our own training, no matter what level we're at.
It's for everyone.
Right. They really drove home the point that you don't need a fancy biomechanics lab to start unlocking this knowledge.
You really don't.
With a smartphone and some know-how, you can start seeing those hidden areas for improvement, maybe even gain that extra edge you've been looking for.
And it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about making those small but targeted adjustments.
Exactly, like that cone placement strategy for the long jump.
Yeah.
Such a simple yet powerful tool that anyone can implement.
Totally.
It's about training smarter, not just harder.
Precisely. And this presentation gives us the knowledge to do just that. It's about understanding those underlying principles,
Right.
observing our own movements with a critical eye, and then experimenting with those micro adjustments that add up over time.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into unlocking athletic potential, I think the biggest takeaway is that it's not about comparing ourselves to the Usain Bolts of the world.
Right. Yeah.
It's about like taking inspiration from their dedication, their understanding of their bodies, and their relentless pursuit of those marginal gains,
Absolutely.
and then applying that same mindset to our own training journeys.
Hmm.
Who knows what we might be capable of with a little bit of biomechanical insight and a whole lot of focused effort.
It's really incredible what the human body can achieve
It really is.
when you start kind of unlocking those hidden
It's
potentials.
all about those small tweaks, big results.
Exactly.
Love it. Well, thanks for diving deep with us on that.
Yeah, this was fun.
As always, such a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise.
And to everyone listening, keep pushing those limits, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.